Okay, I want to start out by making a couple of announcements, and these announcements are from just various emails I get, et cetera, et cetera. So number one, I sent out an email to the class yesterday. I'm trying to make a habit of doing that every Thursday. I love your shirt. I saw them over 100 times. That's my childhood. Yeah, my core here. Grateful for that. Anyway, so I try to send an email out every Thursday so that we're all on the same page in terms of what's going on in the class and due dates and that sort of thing. Okay, I think it's really important to do that. You have a lot of things that you're trying to track. So please do read those emails. I know that people don't email that much, but that's how faculty communicate with their students. And so it is really important to check your campus email. I send them through the Moodle page. That's number one. Number two. All right. I mentioned this the first day, but you were totally overloaded with way too much information the first day. So I want to kind of say these things again in terms of how to be successful in a math class. I think that this is so important. Like, I cannot stress this enough. And what I want to say is, I don't make attendance worth your grade. Okay, that's not like part of how your grade is computed. But I will tell you, in my over 30 years of teaching, there is a very strong correlation between attending class and your success in that class. And if attending class means coming face to face, that's awesome. If attending means zooming in, because that's the way that you can attend class or focus the best or whatever, that is awesome. If attending class means that you work and you need to catch these recordings later on, but that you do actually engage with the recordings and you do actually engage with the class notes, that's fine too, okay? But what I want to say is, I've noticed, attendance decreasing. This always happens, but it always raises alarms to me. Okay, I totally get life happens outside of school. I mean, I did a single mom for. My daughter's almost 27, so I've lived this and had to work full time too. Like, I get all of these things that go on, and I am happy to work with you, but it's so important that you stay engaged in the class. Okay. A lot of times people start coming to class, oh yeah, I got this, and then drift away, and then suddenly you miss 2 class periods and you're like, what is going on? Okay. Don't put yourself in that situation. So the other thing that I want to say, though, is attendance is not enough. You can come to class and listen to me talk and follow things that I'm saying and be like, oh yeah, I'm totally following these examples. I get it. That's cool, but that's not enough. Okay. And I get the fact that a lot of people don't like math. And, hopefully I'm going to be able to show you that there are some really cool aspects to math. I certainly think it's a beautiful thing, but I don't expect that everybody's going to love it as well. I mean, I'm great with that. But the fact of the matter is, and this is where math, tends to form a barrier. When you go to other classes, you can just listen to your teacher talk and take the notes and memorize it, et cetera, and then do well enough on the test. Math is not like that. The only way to learn math is for you to do math, not just follow me doing it, but for you to do it. And that takes time and that takes a commitment. And I will grant you, if you don't like math, it stinks. You know, I was a student too. I had to take a lot of courses that if I could have cared less about, I probably would have. You know, these are hoops that we have to jump through and life is full of them. But my goal for you is that you start, you think of this as, okay, you're never going to use permutations or the multiplication principle, but you're going to learn critical thinking. You're going to learn how to take some written statement and analyze it and pick out the relevant information and irrelevant information. And I assure you, everyone in this room is going to need that skill moving forward. You know, so much of our society now is data oriented. It's so easy to quote unquote lie with statistics. People do it all the time. They use a different measure of central tendency to mislead you. Okay, we'll talk about that later on in the course. But these are really important things that, you know, if you read the news or you read some study in whatever field you're in, you know, psychology majors take this class because you're going to be reading studies and you're going to be seeing words that you have to understand what they are actually computing. Okay, there is a point to this. I'm not just here to waste your time, I swear. Okay, but my point is that you've got to do the work. So what do I recommend you do? What I recommend you do, and I know this takes time, but it takes a lot more time having to repeat a class than it does just to get through a class, okay? What I recommend you do every day, maybe not like Saturday, right? But every day after class sometime, review your class notes, okay? And, you know, read through them, okay? Read through the examples that we do in class. If you get them, cool, okay? What I then recommend you do, even if it's just 1 or 2 questions, assuming that you can read through your notes and follow everything. I mean, number one, if you're not following something, you got to ask me in class, okay? I want you to say, hey, Lauren, before you start talking about this next section, can you go through a couple of these homework problems or this class activity I'm baffled by it? Can you go through an example or so? Like, I want you to ask me questions, but, you know, presuming that you can read through the class notes, because hopefully I explained things well enough in class, copy them down on a separate sheet of paper, put your notes away, and try to work those examples on your own. That's a quote unquote safe space to do it, in the sense that if you follow the example that we did in class, you know, you have your class notes to refer to if you get stuck. But again, it's not enough just to follow me doing it. You need to go home or wherever you go and do that on your own and practice. Okay. You know, these group activities that I give you, they're not meant for you to do. Okay. You can come and make an appointment with me, and you know, I'm happy to sit and guide you through that. I'm not going to give you the answers. You know, I want you to think about it, but really, I would love it if you all would work with each other and talk with each other about the math. I mean, mathematicians have kind of a reputation of being kind of hermits, and you know, admittedly, I really am in my personal life. Other than my dog. But you know, math is like a community activity. It is a very collaborative activity. And the way mathematicians actually do their work is by talking with each other. Okay, so that's why I encourage that. But what I want to emphasize is, and the reason why I'm mentioning this is because I woke up yesterday morning to a ton of emails. Not just from people in this class, but I teach a couple other classes. And they're like, I'm totally confused on this, I don't get it, etc. Please come and ask me questions as we're proceeding. Like, do not settle for not understanding. Please know that I am happy to meet with you. All I ask that you do is send me an email with all of your available days and times and allow some flexibility because I do teach a lot and I do have a lot of meetings. I'm happy to meet you on Zoom on a weekend morning. I mean, I go out and play on the weekends, but I'm home in the morning beforehand, and I'm happy to sit on Zoom with you and talk now on a weekend. Whatever works for you, but please don't wait until you get these worksheets and activities to start asking questions. Okay. But I guess what I just want to really emphasize is the only way to be successful in math is to actually go do it, not just to read through and follow what I do. Okay. So I try to do so many examples in class precisely so that you have a lot of practicing opportunities on your own where you actually have the work that you can refer to if you do get stuck. And I recommend you do that before you jump into the My Open Math homework, before you jump into any of these class activities. Okay. Again, I've been at this for so long, I know exactly how people can be successful in a math class. And I want that for everybody. And it doesn't mean that you have to be awesome at math. Really, persistence and grit, like keeping at it, even though you get kind of mad and frustrated. Grit and persistence, honestly, are two of the biggest things in that characteristics to be successful in a math class. Okay, so let me help you, and don't hesitate to reach out. Like, by me sending you these emails every Thursday, it's to help keep you on track. For you to know like where I expect you to be, and also for you to know that I care, and that to reach out to me, hit reply. And if you have a question, it's a perfect opportunity to do that. I know that I'm different in the way I approach, well, pretty much everything in my life, but you're not going to meet someone who cares more like about your success. And I mean that like in terms of your success in this class, but just in general, in whatever goals and aspirations that you have. So take advantage of the fact that you have me as a resource. I'm well connected throughout the university, throughout Montana. Like, use that, please. I'm really genuine when I say that I want to help you all be successful and find that. Yes, Sally, thank you. I am quite different. My poor children. Anyway, again, please, even if it's just 10 minutes that you look at your notes or 3 examples that you work on your own, that's awesome. You got to keep that skill building going. Okay. All right. So the next thing that I want to say is that next week we will have normal class on Monday. We will have normal class on Tuesday. On Wednesday, we Zoom. It was in the email. I gave you the Zoom link. Everyone's going to Zoom. And then we'll have normal class again on Friday. I have to travel next week to Billings. I'm leaving next week on Tuesday afternoon. I'll be back in Missoula on Thursday evening. I'm one of the chairs of faculty senate, and there's Board of Regents meetings that I have to go to, and I have no problem skipping out and teaching math for an hour. I'll find some good floor space to do that. But if you need help, the other thing that I want to say is not only do you need to go to, but there is a math learning center over on the mountain campus. And maybe you don't like going over to the mountain campus, but this is like on the edge. But if you go to the math building and go into the basement on the mountain campus, they have free walk-in tutoring there, Monday through Thursday from 10 in the morning until 6 at night. And on Fridays from 10 in the morning until 1 in the afternoon. You can just walk in and say, hey, I'm in Math 115 and I need help. Okay, they will help you. They're awesome tutors. A lot of them are undergraduate math majors and grad students. Okay, take advantage of that. It's free. So if you need to go do your homework, you can come to my office and do your homework and I'll sit and hang out with you and answer questions if you have them. But if, you know, my hours and your hours don't necessarily intersect, you've got the Math Learning Center and I want you all to take advantage of it. Now, there will be tutoring here at Missoula College. This is a big thing that I've raised with the president and all of them because they need to share their resources with us. But until we can get some really situated tutoring here on the Missoula College building, please use those resources. You guys can pay the fees. That's what you're paying for. So take advantage of it. Okay, they are seriously really good and helpful over there. You know, I spent my first 18 years of the university teaching in the math department over there. Like I know these people very well. So I guess all I want to say is next week, Wednesday, we're Zooming. You don't need to come here. And other than that, it's the same week as normal. Okay. But if you need extra help next week, you know, I'm around Monday and I'm around Friday and kind of Tuesday morning, but otherwise I need you to get tutoring over on the mountain campus. Okay. And those of you who are in athletics, you have so many tutoring options. You know, they really support you over there. So take advantage of that. All right. So thank you for listening to me. I don't mean to lecture people and tell people what to do. I've always hated being told what to do. So I have a hard time doing that to other people because I feel like a hypocrite. But I want you to be successful. You should only have to take Math 115 once. Okay. I once had a student take it from me 7 times. I'm like, dude, the tests just don't change that much. They're so nice. And you know, yeah, you don't need to do that. This was like 15 years ago. Yeah. Okay. So my next comment that I want to make is you can look in your email and see when the due dates are for lesson 1 and lesson 2. Lab activity 1. Some people tried to hand it in to me late. I cannot accept them late. Please, please, please make sure you hand them in on time. I do drop the 2 low activities. On the class Moodle page, I have solutions for the class activity 1. Okay. If you handed it into me like a physical copy, I have them here to return to you. I would love it. I don't need these. If you email them to me, I don't print them out on top of it. Okay, so if you give me a physical copy, I'll give you back a physical copy. But if you emailed it to me, that's totally cool. But please make sure you compare your answers to the key that's uploaded and let me know if you have questions. Okay. On today's Friday, on Wednesday, got it. On Wednesday, I handed out class activity 2. And if you weren't here and want a physical copy, I've got them. I will hand them out in a moment. If you are not here, but you're zooming in or listening to the recording, it's also posted on Moodle. But before you even try those questions, my friends, review your notes first. Okay, because it does dive in deeply. Okay. Are there any questions, concerns, anything? You know, I'm happy to answer online homework questions. I'm happy to clarify a question on the activity, whatever you want, but please ask. Yeah.
I totally forgot what it's called, but how do you do the exclamation point on this?
On this, it's called factorial. You hit map and you go over the curve. Yep. I can even help you with technology sometimes. Are there any questions? Like, do you want me to clarify anything? Online homework, worksheet, anything? Like, okay, if as we proceed through this class, you have questions, you know, there are days that I might come in and think I'm gonna go talk about whatever math is next on the docket. And I might spend the whole class period just answering your online homework questions. I'm happy to do that. Like, I'm here for you to learn, take advantage of that. Cool? All right. Guys have just been really quiet with questions, and that always makes me nervous. So anyway. All right, I'm not trying to like overthink.
Are we gonna need to know how the tree diagram, how it works?
At this point, I showed you a tree diagram, but we're not really going to be delving into the trees in detail until like lesson 5 and lesson 6. So at this point, I kind of just used that tree diagram to start planting some seeds for where we'll be going. But we'll dive into how to actually do computations with the tree diagram in a few weeks from now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Hey, Sally, just real quick, your email to me yesterday made my day.
That's good to hear.
I love when people have strong opinions. So, all right. Any other questions? Okay. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk for a little bit about lesson 3 that we just barely got started. Just because I want to at least lay the groundwork for why we're even talking about this. And I want to show you where, where these things are used. Would it be helpful for you if okay, that's what I'm going to do. And then I'll answer my own question. Are y'all ready? Okay. Again, I don't mean to like lecture and stuff like that. I really care about your success. And so you have to know that. All right. So what I want to say is we just barely got into this on Wednesday. But one of the things that we talked about is when we wanted to arrange those books on a shelf, like the order mattered, right? Like somehow the whole idea of having a yellow book next to a purple book is really appealing, but having a yellow book next to a green book is not, right? Like somehow we really care about the order and duration. And there's certain situations that we encounter in our life where ordering things matters, right? PIN numbers, definitely. Telephone numbers, area codes, zip codes, social security numbers, your 790 student ID numbers. Okay, in all of those situations, the order matters in which you enter those digits, for example. Okay. You know, if you really care about hanging pictures on the wall in some sort of rhyme or reason, you know, having the arrangement does matter, like flower arrangements, right? All of that sort of thing. But I would venture to say more often than not, the order doesn't necessarily matter. Like, so at the end of class on Wednesday, we were talking about arranging 2 books versus me giving you 2 books. If I'm going to give you 2 books, the order in which I give them to you does not matter. Either way, you just scored 2 books, right? Okay, so it's really important to be able to identify when order matters and when order doesn't matter, because the way you do the computations are very different. When order matters, you use the multiplication principle that we've been talking about, okay? But when order doesn't matter, we use combinations. Now, here's the greatest irony and misuse of the English language. So, I don't know, you had lockers at some point in your life, right? Like gym lockers or school lockers, you know, combination locks, right? Okay. This was always baffling me. Why are they called combination locks? In combinations, order doesn't matter. But doesn't it matter? Like if your combination is 22, 35, 7, doesn't it matter that you go in that order? Yeah. So no mathematician names those things. They should obviously be called permutation or multiplication principle locks, not combination locks. It's the dumbest thing. And it's just one of those things that honestly does keep me up at night. Anyway, so what I want to first emphasize before we even talk about how to compute combinations is the first question you ask yourself is, does order matter? If the answer is yes, you're going to use the multiplication principle that we've been talking about. Okay. And order matters. I'll even list this in things like phone numbers, PIN numbers, zip codes. And whenever you see the word arrange or schedule, right? When you schedule something, the order matters. You can't just say, well, I know I got a math class sometime today, I might as well just go right now. You have to go when it actually exists. Okay. So you might ask when order doesn't matter. Order doesn't matter in general when you have a collection of objects and you're picking a sample, or if you're selecting a committee where everybody on the committee has the same role. Okay. But one of the things, and we saw this last time with the books, is when order mattered, we had 12 arrangements. When the order didn't matter, it went in half and we only had 6. Okay. So you're going to have far more possibilities when order matters versus doesn't matter. So when order doesn't matter, you're going to use these things called combinations. Now, how do you know when order matters and when order doesn't matter? It comes with practice. Okay. And I actually have a sheet that I can post on Moodle for extra practice if it would be helpful for you, just to have a whole list of things in you know, does order matter, does order not? You know, and I'm happy to provide all of those things for you. So definitely let me know. But the first question you always want to ask yourself when you're doing these computations is, does order matter? Okay, now how do you know that you're even going to be solving something using a combination or the multiplication principle? Once you see these questions in how many ways, blah, 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 you're going to be counting, okay? So you're either going to be using the multiplication principle or you're going to be using combinations. Now there's a formula for combinations. I don't recommend anyone use it, okay? You can, but you know, why work harder than you need to? Okay, I'm all about being efficient, lazy, however you want to call it. But what I want to do first is just give you a formal definition of a combination. So a combination of a set of elements. And then you might ask, well, if I'm not going to use the formula, how in the heck am I going to do it? Technology. Okay, we have it, we might as well use it. Okay, so a combination of a set of elements is a type of arrangement where each element is only used once and order doesn't matter. That says matter. I can already tell that my handwriting is lacking here. Okay. Now there's different ways of writing a combination. Sometimes it's signified C, N, comma, R, which looks similar to that permutation. Another way that I write it very often is this. This reads N, choose R. That's another way to show a combination. The problem with using this notation is so often when people have one number on top of another, you automatically write a fraction bar, but it's not correct if you write a fraction bar. In your calculator, you're going to see NCR. Now, if you want to see what the formula looks like, it starts out looking very similar to that permutation formula, but you divide by another term. I always know who comes to class and who doesn't come to class by when people use this formula or not. Okay. Now, on your calculator, no, I brought it. Okay. On your calculator, if you checked one out of the library, the button is right here. It's the same as the exclamation point button. And then it says, I hope you guys can see this, exclamation point, and then it says NCR, NPR. Okay. It's right here, smack dab in the middle, underneath that button that says data. That's if you have this sort of calculator. If you don't have this sort of calculator, so if you got that TI-36X Pro, there's a button in the middle that has this and that. You're going to hit this button twice to get to the NCR. Okay. If you have a fancy TI-83 or TI-84, you're going to hit the button math. You're going to scroll over to PERB. That's short for probability, because really the whole reason why we're doing these things is because we're going to be doing probabilities. And then you go down, isn't NCR number 3? Yeah. And then you hit number 3, you'll see it's NCR. So for example, if I wanted to compute, I don't know,
11, choose 3. The way you would do this in your calculator is you would first type in 11. Now what I'm going to do, see how the first time I hit this button, I get the exclamation point, but then I hit it again and I get my NCR. And then I hit 3 and we would get 165. If you have one of those TI-80 fancy calculators, what you would do is you would hit 11, then you would hit math, go over to PERB, hit number 3 to get the NCR, and then hit 3 and then hit enter. Okay. It's just fundamental that you know how to do this. And again, the reason, notice if I was doing my multiplication principle and suppose I had 11 objects and I wanted to arrange 3 of them, that would be 11 times 10 times 9. Look how many more possibilities there are when order matters. 990 versus just 165. Okay, so there's a lot of redundancies there. So the other piece of groundwork that I want to lay for you before we continue is as follows. And we've linked with the word intersection or the set operation. I want you to start thinking about when you see the word and to multiply. And you'll see where this comes in. I'm just trying to give you some background scoop so that once we dive in, you have these keywords. We also talked about the word or, which we saw associated with our union. In general, when you see the word or, you're going to add. So I need to at least do one example. Suppose we have a club with 20 members and they need to select a committee of 5. Okay, they need to go give some stupid presentation or whatever, right? So you're like, don't pick me. That's how I always feel about committee work. Okay, what I want to know is in how many ways can this committee be selected if, we won't do all these parts today, but I'm going to do some, if there's no restrictions. And you might be like, well, what kind of restriction would you put there? Hold on. So you see this in how many ways? By the nature of that question, you all agree we're counting something. Okay, it's good to take note about this because you know these questions are going to be on a test with a bunch of other questions. How do you know when you're counting? You know, I'm trying to give you the hints of what to look for. Okay, so we know we're going to be counting things. Well, the next question we ask ourselves is, does the order matter? Does it matter what order we pick those 5 people to go on our committee? I claim no, they're stuck to be on the stupid committee. Okay, the order in which we select them doesn't matter. They're on there. So I've asked that question. Now, how many total people do we have to choose from? 20. How many people do we need to choose to be on this stupid committee? 5. I don't have an opinion on anything. Okay, so we don't really need to do a lot of math here. We're going to compute 20 NCR 5. Now, I like writing that as 20 choose 5. This is the notation that I always used. Some people, again, like to use this. Again, I'm not going to tell you how to do it. But if you compute that in your calculator, what do you get? 15,504. Holy smokes. That's a lot of different possible committees. Aren't you glad you don't have to list each one of those 15,504 possibilities? Yes. Okay. So let me just do one more here. What if I say, because I'm going to lay groundwork on how funky things can get. Yes. Okay. This is different. Okay. Let me contrast that right now. Okay. What if I asked, in how many ways can this committee be selected? Because when we wrote out those 5 lines, order mattered. So what would it look like here if order mattered? In how many ways can this committee be selected if, how about I say, the first person picked is the president. The second person picked is the vice president. The third person picked is the treasurer. The fourth person picked is the secretary. And the fifth person picked is the mascot. That's who I'd want to be. Okay. Does order matter here? Here, order does matter. Because now we're differentiating between the different roles on the committee. So in this case, any one of those 20 people could be the first person selected. Okay, but again, this isn't a dictatorship. So how many people do we have to choose from for the next committee? 19, then 18, 17, 16. If you compute this, you're going to get 1,860,480 different possibilities. You guys, compare that. We thought 15,000 was a lot. Okay. So I want you to start looking at the difference in how these things are worded when order doesn't matter versus the situation when order does matter. Because it would be a really different committee if I was the president as opposed to, I don't know, someone else. Probably. Okay, does that make sense? Now, I know this seems like a fine detail, and we're going to continue this example next time because it can get pretty funky. But what I want to do right now is say that I want you to be sure that lesson 1, lesson 2, you're good with. Okay, you don't need to think about lesson 3 yet. We'll talk about that and actually dive into some examples on Monday. What I do want to do, and I'll come back to this example, and then we're going to do a ton more. I promise you, it is my goal to do enough examples that you start seeing the pattern of when order matters and when it does not matter. Okay. But what I want to do is hand out this second activity. Now, I want you to start looking at it over the weekend. And let me explain, Sally, I'll get to that. Start looking at this second class activity over the weekend. I'm happy to answer some questions about it on Monday. Totally. Okay. And I want to hand this back. There was a question though that why are there so many more possibilities when order matters versus when order doesn't matter? You know, let's just look at a committee of 3 people. Okay. If the order matters, suppose we have Abe, Bob, and Charlie. Okay. It's a different committee if Abe is the president, Bob is the vice president, and Charlie is the secretary, then ACB, right? Then BCA or BAC or CBA or CAB. Each of these are 6 distinct committees. If the first person is the president, the second person is the vice president, and the third person is the treasurer or secretary, right? Each of these are different committees. But if it's just a committee of 3 where they all play the same role, then these are all the same thing. Okay, so when order matters, we're looking at all the different possibilities versus when order doesn't matter, these are all the exact same thing. Okay, I will delve into that a bit more on Monday, but I hope that answered a little bit. All right, I hope you have an awesome weekend. I want to hand back these papers, so don't leave yet. Okay.